part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hey, this is Chase Smith, founder and CEO of Press Play Podcast. You may have heard me on the Orange is Oranger Cleveland Browns podcast with Jeremy Powell, now wonderfully hosted by Holly Wetzel, Cavs on the Break NBA podcast with Sam Amico, or my own podcast, the Chase Smith Podcast. I wanted to take a few moments to talk to you about a brand new subscription-based podcast we're offering this football season, the Press Play Sports Podcast. This premium podcast feed will send all of the sports podcasts offered on the Press Play Podcast Network to one central feed. Yes, you can still follow and subscribe to all of our individual shows for free on every podcast platform. But if you wanted to consolidate your podcast feed and listen to them all in one location, the Press Play Sports Podcast is for you. I'm talking the Oranges and Oranger Browns podcast with Holly Wetzel and Jeremy Powell, Red Guy and Rhoda, Sable Brothers on the Baseline, Cavs on the Break, the Dennis Maniloff Show, the Ball Card Show, the Premium Fantasy Podcast, a Swing in a Tribe MLB podcast, and the Tim and Shipe Show, a college football podcast, all in one feed. All 9 of our sports shows curated into one single podcast feed. Out the door, you're looking at $5.36 a month after tax. That's $5.36, just about the cost of a drink at Starbucks. And this is only offered on Apple Podcasts. You can't get this anywhere else. It's an Apple Podcast exclusive. Just go to the search bar and search Press Play Sports. It'll come up and you can subscribe from there. We're excited to offer this consolidated, curated sports feed for you to enjoy. And as always, thank you so much for listening and your support.
This episode of the Orange is Oranger Cleveland Browns podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network, is brought to you by our presenting sponsor, Align Health Center. Align Health Center is the first chiropractic biophysics clinic in Northern Ohio. The team at Align Health Center helps patients with back pain, neck pain, migraines, ADHD, digestive issues, sleep disturbance, whiplash, scoliosis, and much more. And along with chiropractic biophysics, Align Health Center is also the leading clinic in regenerative medicine, also known as stem cell injections. And listen, you don't have to be an NFL player to get it done or have this treatment. If you have low back pain, shoulder pain, knee pain, or arthritis, check out the Regenerative Medicine Clinic at Aligned Health Center. Come in for a free consultation, complete with imaging and x-rays to see how Aligned Health Center can help you. No multiple shots are needed, and it's complete with physical therapy built into the process, so there's no downtime. And look, it gets even better. Align Health Center doesn't charge people for x-rays or exams, and they don't bill you later. They let you know right away the cost. They're upfront and transparent. They are number one for a reason. Call Align Health Center today at 440-385-7357 or visit their website at alignedhealthcenters.com to make an appointment and to learn more about how Align Health Center can help you. Again, that's 440-385-7357 or visit alignedhealthcenters.com.
45-40, run, William, run! He's got blockers in front, 5, touchdown! Joshua Cribb! Snap back, ball down, kick block! They blocked the kick!
All right, what is up, everyone? Welcome into the Orange is Oranger Cleveland Browns podcast. My name is Holly Wetzel. You can find me at Holly and Liz on Twitter. Joined as always with Jeremy Powell, hashtag JIA, formerly on Twitter. Jeremy, what's going on? Merry Christmas. How you doing?
Merry Christmas to you.
Did Santa bring you everything that you wanted?
Oh my gosh. I do. It's almost embarrassing because I'm 40, the way I get spoiled at Christmas. My parents are like the greatest parents ever, right? And they still like want to do, even though I'm 40, they want to like, they got me a signed Nick Chubb jersey, frame the whole 9, you know, like a fire pit. They go all out for Christmas just because they love it. So it's fun. It's kind of embarrassing because I'm 40. I'm like, why did you guys buy me so many presents, you know? And then my wife's mom does it too. She like always gets me like 2 really awesome pairs of shoes because she knows I love shoes. Mm-hmm. So like, I love it. It's cool. It's awesome. It is a little embarrassing because I'm 40, but it's still fun. So and we have a huge family on my side. So
yeah,
I have 3 little brothers and a little sister, and the, you know, all but the 2 youngest have kids. So it's fun. Christmas is fun.
Good. Well, I'm glad one of us had a really nice, joyous Christmas. As you know, I'm dealing with the Rona. Was blessed with it on Christmas Eve morning, which is really great. So a little bit different this year for me on the Christmas level, but just, you know, I got the classic Omicron running through me, you know, that cold, head cold, runny nose, cough, all the fun stuff. Very, very tired, but I will say, like, I've gotten some really good sleep this past week because my body's like screw you. Yeah, you're not moving, which is totally fine with me. So anyway, I'm glad that you had a good Christmas. The one thing that we did not get on Christmas, of course, was a Browns win, which we were beyond close and should have gotten the W. And, Jeremy, I did not go into this game with like an ultimatum in my head about Baker. Like, I wasn't like, he wins this, like, he's my guy. He doesn't, he's out. My thought process wasn't that. However, I was watching the game and I knew in the end we weren't going to get it done. Like, my gut was telling me that. My hopes were different, right? And as soon as that happened, as soon as he threw that last interception, I was just it solidified for me, though that wasn't the plan, that he's good, Jeremy, but he's just not good enough. And there are so many things around him right now of why, but there are excuses, and everybody has an excuse for everything. And excuses help us deal with things, prolong things, try to make things easier for us. But at the end of the day, they are just excuses, because the NFL doesn't care. The league doesn't care. The businesses don't care. The teams don't care. It is a cold-hearted business. And my dad and I were talking, and I can't remember who said it, that he was telling me, and he says, the NFL stands for not for long. And it's so true. So there's only so much sympathy around. And when you're not performing at your job, you get evaluated, and you either stay and you get bonuses and you get financially rewarded, or you're out. And at the end of the day, Jeremy, he could not deliver. And I knew deep down, as much as I didn't want to say it or prove my dad wrong, I'm always trying to do that with Baker, that it's frustrating. And the one of the telling things, my brother sent me this stat, and it actually got picked up on Twitter by a couple different people, but Baker has had the ball 15 times in his career on the final drive with a chance to tie or win the game. His record in those games have been 2 of 13, which is now 2 of 14 with Green Bay. That's beyond telling. And you and I have been saying this from literally week 1 about Baker, that these were our fears, but I can't anymore every week be like, well, maybe next week, like my hopes, and like, hopefully he comes out this week. Maybe this is the week. I mean, people are still doing that he's going to come out against Pittsburgh and Cincinnati and roll because of where the Steelers are at and where Cincinnati are past with Cincinnati. I don't put past, that would be Big Ben's last home game, potentially, probably. And it's the Steelers. They always do show up to a certain extent. And then we go to the Bengals. I'm not taking them lightly. I know that Baker has pretty much owned them. But at the end of the day, that's where I ended up. I did not think that or had any plans or intentions of that, but it was almost like coming to the end of a relationship and being like, yeah, I'm not in love with you anymore. Like, it ain't happening anymore. And maybe Baker, I'm not in love with you anymore. And that is a really hard thing for me to say.
And, I don't place it all on Baker, and especially right after the game. Like, okay, he threw 4 picks. He really threw 5 because people forget they don't count on your stats, but the 2-point conversion pass was picked off as well.
Right.
And he also threw one right into someone's chest, which would have been 6.
The screen, yeah.
Yeah, and so my initial gut feeling right after the game was I was mad at Stefanski because we were running the ball at will. We got 30 yards on the 3rd and 10 by Dearness Johnston. We had first and 10 with a minute to go, with all 3 timeouts at the 50. Realistically, we probably needed 30 yards to feel comfortable with our, first-time kicker. So my initial thought was I was mad at Stefanski. I thought, why did you do this? Why did you not run there? But, the more I thought about it, the more Njoku was wide open. That's a pass that a quarterback has to hit. That's a big chunk play. That's a 25-yard gain, 20 at least if he hits him. The screenplay, okay, good play by a defender. It was set up. And then the throw into traffic, holding, yes, absolutely, but you can't rely on penalties to win a game, right? So after thinking about it, seeing how open Njoku was, hearing Coach Stefanski, I don't know if you noticed this, not only was he surly with the media, he threw Baker under the bus a little bit on those last 3 plays because he pointed out that, hey, first down, we should have had a big chunk play. Second down, we had a screen that was set up if the ball got there. And third down, it is a hold. I mean, everybody saw it, but it shouldn't even have got to that because that pass to, most starting quarterbacks in the NFL hitting Njoku when he's got a 2-yard cushion on a play like that. It's not a tough throw. So I don't know. Maybe now there's definitely a case to be made. Should he have been out there? Hadn't practiced in 2 weeks, flew up the day of the game. Would they have been better off with Nick Mullins? I think that's a valid argument. Okay, that's a valid argument, and that would be on Stefanski. But you just can't a starting quarterback in the NFL just can't put himself in those positions. You can't give the team the ball that many times and expect to win. It's almost impossible. I'm sure if you look back in the history of the league, when you're a -4 turnover, there's probably been a handful of wins ever, right? You just can't do it. And I believe Green Bay scored all their touchdowns off of Baker Mayfield interceptions. Whether they were completely his fault or not, the first one, Peoples-Jones, he also got held a little, but still, I thought that was a little bit of an ill-advised throw. The throw to Landry pointed up. He was pointing for Baker to go deep.
He was going like this.
Deep.
Yep.
Right. He was pointing deep. And what Baker do? Baker threw it shallow on the side, and that was picked. So it's tough. And I'm almost to the point where, and I watched the Miami game last night. I watched Tua. They've won 7 in a row, but Tua is limited as well. He can't throw the ball deep. So my thought was, what are we going to do at quarterback next year? If there is not, I think what ends up happening is they bring in a veteran. They give Baker one more look. There's no way they give him a contract this offseason. And we see how he plays healthy and go from there. Because and barring some ridiculous, something happened with Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson, Derek Carr, like that, I just don't think it's going to happen. I think we are going to have Baker for one more year. I think they're going to say, look, here it is, Baker. You're healthy. No excuses. You got your great offensive line back, have weapons, go out and prove it. I think that's what's going to happen. And one other thing I wanted to touch on that you said, I actually disagree with you a little bit. I think if the Bengals lose Sunday, I think the Browns make the playoffs. I do. I think if Kansas City beats the Bengals Sunday, I think the Browns beat the Steelers Sunday, and then they beat the Bengals at home the next week. So, and for what you said, there's some kind of mental thing with Baker. He's great against the Bengals. He's great. Yeah. There's something that he has figured out against the Bengals. I think it's a thing. I think Baker thrives a lot on confidence, and he knows when he steps out on the field against the Bengals, he has them figured out. He knows what they're going to do. He knows what to look for. He knows the personnel. He knows what he can do against them. And I think a lot of that, and that we've talked about this. How many times have we talked about Baker is his own worst enemy? He gets in his own head. But that also works in reverse. When you're kind of personality that Baker has, when you're extremely confident that you know what you can do against somebody, you almost get to like superhuman levels. And that's what he's done against the Bengals. So I think if the Bengals lose to, and you know what, I'm going to keep rolling here. Our defense has been phenomenal. Who would have ever thought we'd
doing its job?
And that was still down. You had Miles at maybe 50%. You had Clowney out still. You had John Johnson III out. So you had Ronnie Harrison out, and your defense still looked great. That's a team that was averaging 36 points a game over their previous 5 games coming into that game. That's a team that has been doing whatever they wanted at will. And you got 3 big stops in the fourth quarter, 3 and outs. One, aided by Devontae Adams' drop, but 3 and outs in the fourth quarter to get your team the ball back. So I actually feel pretty good, going forward into this, but it comes back to the quarterback. And we've talked about it from the beginning of the year. It's got that situations have to be perfect. And you know what? You could almost say that this week he failed with almost perfect situations outside of not practicing. His running game was on point. He got sacked a few times, but he wasn't under tremendous pressure. Joe Platonio has been unbelievable moving out the left tackle. You wouldn't even know that he wasn't a normal starting left tackle. And the defense played excellent. So he did have a lot of help around him, and he still didn't finish the job. So
and that's across the board. I mean, on the team last year, it was next man up mentality, right? And it was every guy seemed to fit in where they needed to be. There was just this ebb and flow of each guy of where he needed to go and what he needed to do. And I agree. I think that Baker is going to be our quarterback next year. There will be no extension at this point. And we're at another point again where it's like, well, let's see what he's got. And it's like, I'm so sick of that. Right. Yeah. But it's the same thing. And look, Jeremy, I know that he's hurt and I get it. Right. But when we had Jason Lloyd on last week, he said with his size and that type of guy, he'll always be hurt. He'll always be nursing some kind of wound. And on top of all of that too, Jeremy, I think that would also help him is having a better attitude. I mean, he's got a terrible attitude, and if you disagree with him or you're on his bad side, you're done. There's no, it's you're either with me or against me. And I think that mentality has now gone in through to the locker room across the board. And so there's clearly a morale thing going on in the locker room, I think. And it's now we've seen traces of it within the family members, which we'll talk about later, and the social media aspect and all of this stuff. But I also think
did you catch where he said he uncharacteristically threw those picks? Well, I hate to tell you this, Baker, since 2018, you have 54 interceptions. You lead the league since 2018. So it's kind of characteristically.
It's actually uncharacteristic for you to not throw. Last year was very uncharacteristic for him to not throw. I think he threw one or not even one last year, right?
And I'm sure that's another mark against him with an analytically driven group who didn't draft him. Andrew Berry did not draft Baker Mayfield.
Right.
Kevin Stefanski did not have any say in drafting Baker Mayfield. This is a group that prizes analytics. What is the big thing? And the big thing with analytics is you don't turn over the ball. You don't give up possessions. You just don't do it. And he is leading the league in interceptions since 2018.
Yes.
I know, and the Baker Mafia loves to post all these things on Facebook and all these Facebook groups I look at. Oh, look at this. He's, third behind Otto Graham in this, and he's just behind Bernie and Otto Graham in this. That's fine. It's a different league now. And the one, it used to be like Brett Favre's days, you could throw 150 picks in 5 seasons. It's just not how it works anymore.
Right.
The game has evolved, and you got to take care of the ball. And that's just what it is.
Right. And look, I do want to say that I don't think the entire game was lost because of Baker. I think there was a lot of players that there were dropped passes. There were issues along the whole game, and I'm with you when you said about at first about you were kind of pissed about the play calling and with the last drive. And I was the same way. Cause at first I was like, why didn't they run the ball? They shouldn't get it to Chubb, blah, blah, blah. Went through that whole thing. And then I stepped back and it's like, no, if you can't trust your quarterback to get you 25, 30 yards comfortably to where your brand new kicker can kick with confidence.
Yeah.
If you can't rely, if you're like, no, don't give it to him, just run it because that's what'll win this game. That's a problem. That's a big problem. I thought
Kevin Stefanski was right. Kevin Stefanski was right.
Here you go.
He said, look,
he's giving him every opportunity. Yes.
Yeah. On first down, you missed the guy for a chunk play. And, as much as I was annoyed with the play calling at the time, when you look back on it, coach is right. You give your quarterback an opportunity to make a play, and he couldn't deliver on a play that was open. And the screen, the same thing. Now, the screen's a little bit tougher, but it was wide open if he got it over the one, defender.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. It's a harsh reality to accept. And do I have the answer of who it should be? Like, God forbid I say that too on Twitter. Everyone's like, who should it be? And blah, blah, blah. And they get all angry. Who do you think it should be? Like, do you think it's Case? Blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, obviously I don't think it's Case Keenum is our solution. You know what I mean?
If you run the ball this well, look at how the Colts have just had, we talked about game manager. Look at Carson Wentz has been just a game manager, and the Colts are in the thick of the playoff race. He's buying. There was games where there's games where he threw the ball 13 and 14 times. So, you don't necessarily need the big franchise quarterback to be good. Now you do to win the championship, but I mean, to be, competitive, you just need someone who doesn't make mistakes.
Right.
And if we don't have the mistakes this week, we win that game. Now, it's not solely on Baker Mayfield, but if he does not throw 4 interceptions, we win that game.
Right. And by the way, we also caused 4 interceptions against Baltimore.
And didn't win. We couldn't capitalize on it. Right.
So that's also very telling. And I know, look, it's not black and white, and everything, we talk about this all the time, everything in today's world is, and this, for instance, is not. I don't think Baker's terrible. I just don't think that if he's hurt, it has now officially, if it hasn't already been shown, that you're hurting the team more than you're helping. And he hurt their chances to win. If that's what's going on. I don't think that's totally what's going on. I'm sure that he's hurt. I know that he's playing through it, but that's what he's going to have to always do. And at some point it's he's got to buy into what's there. He's got to buy into this, to the scheme. And I think last year was a little different because everybody, it was new. He wasn't hurt. COVID caused a whole different mindset. I think the focus was there. There was so much other shit going on in a good way. And I think this year was a big year for adversity for all of them. And it scares me because then I'm like, well, can you not handle it? Because it doesn't feel like he can handle it. And it doesn't feel like he's able to maneuver it or navigate it. And that's where you got to look at yourself and you got to grow up. You got to let the noise go in and out. You got to focus on your teammates and your coaches and the game and the task at hand. And the focus seems off. The trust is not there on both ends. Like I said, the morale's down. It's a weird, and it's not good because Jeremy, if we do go to the playoffs, what's the point? I mean, I know that sounds ridiculous, but it's true. Like, okay, so when we win the division, like ipso facto, we get in, right? Then we're in a situation where what? Right. Then what? We're going to get our asses
It has been.
kicked.
I'll say this though. It's been a weird year in the NFL, man. The any given Sunday thing is the any given Sunday moniker has never been more any given Sunday than this year. I mean, would you ever in a million years thought the Texans were going to beat the Chargers this week? It's been, I think 3 straight weeks. This is crazy. There's been 3 straight weeks now where a double-digit dog won by double figures. It just does not happen, especially this late in the season.
No.
So it's been so and I'm sure you've heard Rizzo and them say, just get in the tournament. That's what they always say, just get in the tournament. However, I mean,
that was last year for me. Last year was get in, get in, right? Because then that's where our confidence came. And I'm sad to say it though, Jeremy, the only games that I really felt that we really cared and were invested in, one of them was the Raiders. One of the very few was the Raiders, and half of those guys weren't even playing. So that's a scary thing too. Like everything's just off. And so I'm like, we make the playoffs. Like I don't even care anymore. Like, and I think that's also why the Raiders game disappointed me more than even this one against Green Bay. Green Bay made me angry. Raiders made me sad. Because I think the heart was there in both of them, but definitely more with the Raiders, that they were trying to do everything they could because they wanted it.
I can tell you this.
Don't feel it anymore.
I agree. But one thing I will say, and I'll give this credit to Stefanski, they have not, he hasn't lost the team. It's obvious. That team is playing hard. That team's playing hard no matter who's on the field. So obviously they haven't lost the coaches haven't lost players. Now, what's going on with Baker? If Baker even wants to be here anymore, which is with some of the stuff we're about to get into in a minute here, makes you wonder if he doesn't want to change the scenery. And maybe that's what he needs. But I'll let you get in. I'll let you start. I'll let you start.
That's a great setup, Jeremy. Thank you very much. That's what a co-host does. So we're going to take a quick break, and we come back. We're going to talk. Does Baker really want to be here? And we're going to talk a little bit about his social media and others. So we'll be right back.
Looking for new insights on the Cleveland sports scene with a unique side of Cleveland sports history? Then you found the perfect podcast. I'm John Sable.
And I'm Scott Sable, and we're hosts of the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast, a podcast about Cleveland sports, but not your typical podcast about the land's sports teams. Join us as we embark on a journey of sharing a unique and historical side of Cleveland sports history with the help of some former Cleveland sports stars and other historical figures.
All right here on the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hey everybody, it's Sam Amico from Cavs on the Break NBA podcast. Be sure to give us a listen for all your Cleveland Cavaliers recaps, analysis, breakdowns, draft talk, free agency. The list goes on and on. Give us a listen, Cavs on the Break NBA podcast.
Hi, my name is Sam Post, owner of Phenomenal CBD Store and PhenomenalCBD.com. That's like phenomenal, CBD.com. Tune in where we talk with experts about how the amazing hemp plant can make a difference for people's health and well-being from the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hey everybody, I'm Gary.
And I'm Jason. Opening cards as a kid, no matter what was in the pack, you always had that stick of chewing gum. Well, it turns out Gary and I opened up a box of 86 Tops last year, and let me tell you, the chewing gum does not age well.
Join us on the Ball Card Show,
the sports podcast for the sports collector.
This is Mike Voorhees, co-host of the Swing and a Tribe MLB podcast. If you love Cleveland Indians baseball, then this is the pod for you. We've got you covered each week as we talk about all the games, breaking news, trades, the roster, all things Tribe. You're going to love it. Go Tribe.
Hello, this is Don Mike Mendoza, the host of the Producing While Asian podcast. Join us to listen in on conversations with everyone who identify from producers to non-producers who all are part of the AAPI community. There's all that and more on the Producing While Asian podcast here on the Press Play Podcast Network.
Want to hear more about your favorite TV shows and movies that are on countless streaming services?
Then listen to Up Next with your new favorite hosts, me, Kristen Aviles,
and me, Christina Walter.
Every other week, we'll highlight one genre, but 2 movies or TV shows, one old and one new.
We'll let you know what's hot and what's not from your favorite
or least favorite
streaming services.
And be sure to stay tuned to the end of each episode where we shout out an artist whose name you should know for their talent in the industry.
So follow us to stay up to date with your favorite hosts from Up Next,
a part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
All right, we are back on the Oranges Oranger Cleveland Browns podcast. I'm Holly Wetzel, joined, of course, with Jeremy. And Jeremy was just giving me some very good news in Cleveland about one of the other really great teams, the Cavaliers, are getting healthier, which is exciting stuff. So we are not a Cavs podcast, but apparently that's where we should be in the business right now.
At this moment.
So Sam Amico, congratulations. You are blowing shit up, and
right?
We are not. So.
And he is great. And Sam is great. Sam's awesome.
Sam is great. I've known Sam for a very long time. Great dude. All right, we are going to talk about social media. Social media from the players, their family members, fans. And it's a very sticky world we live in. And it's a very different world than any other athlete has probably ever had to deal with. And it's only getting muckier. And why this is getting brought up? Well, we've been talking about this every week with like, it literally was a game. Like, whose family member is going to say something next week? And literally, Jeremy, every week it has been someone else, which is, we were kidding, but that's where it's going to. So all of that noise, it's like, what the hell is really going on? And the latest is Emily Mayfield posted, Baker's wife posted this evening. This is a Tuesday after the Green Bay game, about getting death threats and such, which people, if it's the Cleveland Browns, for God's sakes, don't be giving death threats. But on other things she mentioned were blatant criticism and lies and going on. And then went on the second post to comparing Baker's first couple years to Brett Favre's and Drew Brees. And at some point, this is not the first time that she's done this. Wyatt Teller's mom was going off about the refs on Twitter. I didn't even know she had a Twitter, but she does now. Going off about
she was right, by the way.
She was, but it's like, and honestly, she didn't even really bother me. That didn't really bother me because she's like complaining about the game, right? Like, you're frustrated with the game and how the game's called. That's fine. If she starts tweeting about how she thinks Baker sucks, well, then that's a whole different story, right? But you do have to wonder. We always say, where there's smoke, there's fire. And why does Emily feel the need to do this? Because at the end of the day, Jeremy, just because, look, this is the world we live in. whether you like it or not, whether it's right or not, it's not right what people say and do behind a computer screen.
No.
It's not. But when you start to address it, when you bring it to light, that's when things continue to gather and roll. I mean, if you don't want any of attention, you can't have it both ways. Unfortunately, that's just not how life works. It's not, you can't have the good social media without the bad social media. It sucks. It should only be good. She wants to only get positive stuff and post positive stuff. Well, that's great. That's like, life isn't rainbows and fairy tales. It's just not. And if you don't want to, don't read it. Hire someone to read it. Don't have it. Because then it's not doing anything for you. If she wants to, there's so many ways now to customize who can reach out to you, who can see your stuff, all of what you post. I mean, you could have a private Instagram where only your certain people see your stuff. Like, there's so many things. And again, it's like, I don't know who's worse sometimes between her and him, just constantly picking at whatever the bait is thrown out there. Because if they try to ignore it, and look, I don't know, I'm not a professional athlete. I don't know what I would do if people on social media attacked me that way. I mean, I had a blip of that the one day when I tweeted about when I have Baker questions. Boy, oh boy, how things come full circle on Twitter back against the Chargers, and I got ripped. And yeah, it's hard. People are very mean, but at the end of the day, and I feel for her. I feel bad. It's not right. I'm not saying that's right. I'm not condoning it, but I don't really feel bad as long as no one's like, well, the death threats are a whole different thing, right? Like, obviously that's awful. But I'm not even talking about that. Right?
If you just want a death threat, you're an idiot over a football game.
Yes.
Okay. I understand you get caught up in it, and I used to get really caught up in it. It would put me in a bad mood for a week. You can't just want a death threat. Okay, you're a moron if you do that. But where they're wrong is, like, you can't listen to it, especially right after the games. You can't listen to the dumb stuff. I've been to, like, 100 whatever games in that stadium. I've heard some people say some pretty ridiculous stuff in the stadium, right? I was at the Dwayne Rudd helmet toss game, and there's a bunch of guys that wanted to get a group together to go fight him after the game. Okay, the difference between then and now is, though, their outlet then was just yelling at their drunk buddies. Their outlet now is tweeting at the players and tweeting at their family members and all that stuff. And it's ridiculous. I agree. But they have to block it out. Like you said, the good with the bad. You make millions of money, you're a public figure. People are going to send ridiculous crap at you.
Yes.
So you're right. If I was Emily Mayfield, I understand that because of their business they got going with advertising and all that stuff. They need that platform. But she's got to find a way just to block out the noise. They have to. You cannot have rabbit ears on everything. There's so many people. It's like even Rizzo talks about it all the time. He says he doesn't even read the tweetbacks. That's what, and Joe Rogan as well. These guys, they don't even read it. They don't even read what people respond to their tweets. That's how they have to be. I know it's hard, and I know it stinks, and I know it stinks that they have to do that, but it's just the reality. Like you said, it's not a perfect world. There's always going to be morons. And this is the first time in human history that you've had such access to that class of people, where you can just go on and express your feelings right to these athletes, or right to the president, or right to
which you were never able to do.
Never in human history till this point you have this kind of access to these people. And of course, you're going to have people that are blowing off steam. Some people are just trying to get a reaction because they're trolls, and it's fun for them to try to get a reaction. And then when they nail you, then they're clapping hands with their mom in the basement, right? That's just how it goes. There's always a risk too. So you can't let that dictate your life. You can't let that run your life if you're them. You have to find a way to block it out. And if you are sending death threats to Emily Mayfield or Baker Mayfield, you're an idiot. Get off social media. You're an idiot if you're doing that, but she does. It's partially her fault. It's partially their fault, because you can't have rabbit ears. You can't constantly feel the need to defend yourself. Look, Baker, you're in the NFL. You already have made more money than any of these people tweeting at you will ever make in their lifetimes. You're already more successful than they will ever be. Ignore them. Play your game. You don't feel the need to defend yourself from everybody. Don't feel your need to defend yourself from Colin Cowherd who's trying to get a rise out of you. Stop all that stuff and just focus on football. That's what
and he has been, by the way, Colin Cowherd has been rough on Baker this week. He said that Baker, the one I listened to, he said Baker is a finger painter, and
I saw that Aaron Rodgers painted Picasso. I saw he was, and now he's got a new one too.
Oh my God!
Now he's going after Tua and Baker are like his whipping boys now.
because Baker responds to everything, and and Emily's not doing the same. But what also begs the question here is, Emily Mayfield's throwing out Brett Favre, Drew Brees stats. Okay.
Yeah.
Last time I don't know her at all, but I don't know. And maybe she does. Maybe she studies Brett Favre and Drew Brees, like, by all means. That's great. I don't. So that's good. But that makes me feel like, did she really just decide to post that herself? There was no influence behind there.
Or is Baker the one doing it?
Well, did someone giving her giving her, because here's why where this is going to is, people have been very vocal on the team and families against Baker, and not against the Browns to a certain extent, but Baker specifically, which we've talked about, which is weird. And the only people that are defending Baker publicly is his wife. I mean, sure, his some of his teammates are like, well, I'm going to stick with my quarterback. Well, yeah, that's what they have to say, right?
It's sort of those are some of the mildest defenses of the quarterback I've ever seen. Like, there's nobody like going to the wall for Baker. They're going to
right.
I kind of got your back, Baker.
Like, I got you the back until like 9 to 5. Got your back, right?
Except, well, John Johnson did tweet during the game to run the damn ball. So I don't know who that's a shot at, but
and again, that too, it's like, why even try to spring any type of speculation if you know what you're doing? These guys, I understand, are young, really relatively young. I mean, I think we sometimes forget that these guys are in their young to mid 20s, right? Like, it's insane. Yeah. And I know that it's a lot to navigate with all this new money and fame and attention and girls and the whole thing. I totally get that's a learning curve. Some good for some for not.
Yeah.
And I know that everyone has their breaking point. Like, I've certainly sounded off and wrote unhinged text messages to people and men I've dated, right? Like, and I've gone off. I get that we all have breaking points, and there's other outlets for that. Go call one of your friends on the phone, right? Like, you're only making things worse for you. And I'm bringing Emily up only for the pure fact of that she is the latest one to write. I mean,
something. outside of Matthew Stafford's wife, is there anybody else that you can remember
in the NFL?
Matthew Stafford's wife's got in a couple skirmishes.
It's funny you bring that up, because I was going to look that up before this, and
I just don't think it exists.
Not so much in the NFL. Like, Patrick Mahomes' wife, I guess, goes off on Twitter, but it's like,
hers,
like, that's Patrick Mahomes, right?
Different. Yeah, it is Goofy brother. They're a nice little they're a nice little combo there. But I mean, she's more. But
you know why? A lot of that just gets kind of brushed off too, because it's Patrick Mahomes and he's proven himself. Yeah. Like, there's so much that Baker hasn't been able to prove. And that's all he wants to do. And sometimes you want to shake him and be like, stop living for these people. Live for you. Live for your talent and, this opportunity. And stop trying to be like, it's not a you versus me or me against the world mentality. Like, it shouldn't.
And the other thing is, what is it going to accomplish? Like, what is her sharing his stats? Like, is Andrew Berry going to go, oh shit, look at this? Get him that contract. Is like, hey, what is the in
the meeting? Did you see Emily's post?
Oh, I didn't even realize that his numbers were that good. Like, like, who are they trying to convince here? Because I promise you, B. Brian from Youngstown, you don't got to prove shit to him. He don't have anything to do with your next contract. All right, you don't have to prove to any of these people that are coming at you on Facebook or Twitter anything. You don't have to prove anything.
Speaking of that, so I when the Browns game got moved, the Raiders game, people on Twitter were actually convinced that they helped move the game.
Oh yeah, here we go.
It's like, okay, that's how delusional people are. Like, no offense.
They mobilized the troops to go after the NFL. Pretty sure
Twitter moved it.
Pretty sure JC Treader had a little more to do with this than Brown's Twitter. Pretty sure the Players Association is a little more involved.
And the NFL's not doing shit if they don't make their money. So that's they don't give a shit about Brown's Twitter. Okay,
No,
they just don't. So I'm
No.
glad that they think that way, Brownster. I'm glad that helps you sleep at night. But like,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's you take the bad with the good on social media. You just do. We all make these decisions to be on a platform, and unfortunately, while we all maybe get in different degrees, that's just part of it. And right, you are only shedding light and giving attention to something that probably doesn't deserve it, because now she posts these stats. Do you know how many more people are probably responding to that now?
Yeah, I'm sure she's getting people post back at her the 54 interceptions since 2018 that he leads the league in interceptions. So
Well, that's what I'm saying.
She's opening herself up to the negative by doing this. It's just, I don't know.
So that's why I go back to what's really going on and who's really behind that, because and I get it. Like, if that's my husband and there's no one else defending him, yeah, you want to be that person. And there's so many ways you can do that. But it's coming to the point where even Carly Teller, Wyatt Teller's wife, was last week, was people are awful. And I get it. I know people are awful, but it's like this, you are not getting anything less or more than any other wife on social media of a professional athlete. There's not, it doesn't make it right. It's just what it is. But with all of that being said, it does make me question even more what's really going on with Baker. Is he happy? Does he have a part in putting some of this stuff out? We know how much he pays attention to the media. And I can't help now but think, does he really, it's only fueling that fire of that. Maybe he doesn't want to be here either.
Yeah. Yep. I don't know. Maybe he's like, maybe he thinks the system isn't a fit now. Maybe he agrees with, when Hugh Jackson came on our show after last year and kind of said that he doesn't think that Baker's a fit in this offense. And we kind of laughed at him. He said he thinks Baker's the kind of guy that needs to be run out of shotgun and sling it around. Maybe Baker thinks that too now. So who knows? Who knows where this is going to go? It's going to be interesting. Right now, I mean, I hope that he's just focused on beating the Steelers. That's what what's the old clip that Emmett Golden runs that clip? Right now, all I know is I'm focused on beating the Steelers. Yep. hopefully that's where Baker is right now.
Well, right. You always want the focus to be the next game, right? Like, and they say it is, but that's always up for debate. So let's talk about Pittsburgh, Jeremy.
They stink.
We got Pittsburgh on Monday. I know. We got Pittsburgh on Monday. We're both coming off of some rough losses. It could be Big Ben's last home game. Probably will be Big Ben's last home game. And I know I mentioned this at the beginning, like, I don't ever count the Steelers out. Mostly because of Big Ben and Mike Tomlin. Like, I don't ever completely, count them out. But however, we should win this game. We should have won the last game. It's Monday night.
Just not that
it's
good.
At Pittsburgh. Jeremy, people get desperate, and I feel like it's going to be dirty.
I'm making a bold prediction here. Holly. I'm going to predict that if the Bengals lose to the Chiefs on Sunday, that the Browns are going to beat the Steelers Monday night. And that's going to set it up for all you can ask for is to go into the last week with a chance to play in the playoffs, right? So I think if the Steelers beat that, if the Bengals lose to the Chiefs, I think the Browns beat the Steelers on Monday night. And we go into weeks 17, 18 now, week 18 of the season with a chance against the Bengals at home of a game that I'm sure will be flexed tonight if everything falls as it could.
Yeah.
That'll probably be a night game in Cleveland. That's my prediction. I think my bold prediction is the Browns win that game. If it does, and maybe they win otherwise, because then it's not going to matter for either team. Because I believe the Browns and the Steelers will be eliminated if the Bengals
beat the Chiefs.
I believe so.
That sounds right.
The Browns are eliminated. The Browns are eliminated 100%.
Right.
I think the Steelers are as well in that scenario. So then it won't be anything. The game won't mean anything, and who knows who shows up. Yeah. And then maybe it does become the Ben Roethlisberger coronation, and nobody cares. But if the Chiefs beat the Bengals, I think the Browns win that game.
Yeah.
And I think they play well. And I think Nick Chubb, it looks like he looked great this week. Looked like he's back to being Nick Chubb, and if they stick to the running game, D'Ernest Johnson, what can we say about D'Ernest Johnson? It's like an unsung hero. Every time he's got a shot this year,
he just plays his ass off every time.
Yep. And one thing that he does that I think is underrated, if you notice, he cuts very well while going north and south. He gets north and south quick. He makes those little cuts without losing ground.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what a lot of the greats do. And I can't remember who it was. I heard someone nationally say they studied his tape of every carry he had this year. And they said, this guy's a legit NFL running back. This is not a flash in the pan. This is not a guy that just does it here. This is a guy that can play.
Mm-hmm.
So with this embarrassment of riches at running back we have, and with the cavalry coming back, everybody, they took 8 people off the list, Jadeveon Clowney, I think there was only 3 people that didn't practice, but they were all on bikes. So, I mean, they're all out there. So I don't think, I
there's
think
no
the Browns
excuse, right? I mean,
exactly. The excuses are gone. Their team is healthy. If they have something to play for, if the Chiefs do their part for the Browns, I think they win that game.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Jadeveon Clowney being back is underrated, because Jadeveon puts pressure on the quarterback. Maybe he doesn't always get home, but he's always puts pressure, and he's great against the run.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody knows that now. The guy is great against the run. I hope they re-sign him. I don't know if they will. I don't know if he will. But
yeah, there's that. That's the boy. I can't wait to talk who's going to be back and who's not.
Those will be fun
after this season.
Those will be fun discussions. And it'll be and there'll be immense interest. So we're talking earlier about a numbers bump. I can promise you there'll be more interest once the season's over in that kind of talk. Who's going to play quarterback? Who's going to be back on this roster? Those will be some interesting
Mm-hmm.
conversations.
Yeah.
So, but for now, I'm going to say this: the Browns. Here's my prediction, Holly. The Browns will win Monday night. The Browns will win the game Monday night. I think a 10-point win. I think it'll be a big win. I think, especially if we have something to play for, I'm going to say Browns 27, Steelers 17.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
There you go.
You
don't agree? I already see it.
I just I look. I'm at a point where I don't think that they're going to get it. I don't think they're going to get it done. I think they're going to lose. I think they're going to lose to Pittsburgh on Monday night in Pittsburgh. Stars align for Pittsburgh more than they do for Cleveland, and they tend to align for Pittsburgh when they play us. And I know last year was an anomaly, right? Like during the playoffs, like that was an insane, like was full moon status. What's happening? I don't think that Big Ben's it has any type of vengeance or anything over Cleveland. Like, I don't think that there's anything like that. I just think that this is now Big Ben's playing for his own legacy and his own way out. And for him to lose against the Browns at his last home game, I don't see it. I don't like it. I don't count the Steelers out. So I can't do it. And I wish I could. Had we beat them maybe the first time, Jeremy, I would have considered. Yeah. And look, I know that they've fallen apart, but I'm just, after last week and stuff, I can't do it. So I think it's going to be close. I think we lose. And I'm going to say 17-14 Steelers.
And let me explain my score too. 27-17. I think it's gonna be one of those games where the Browns got to a big lead. They're gonna get to a big lead, and the Steelers will get their token touchdowns late. But honestly, if it is a close game, I don't see how the Steelers can move the ball on the Browns right now. The way that the defense is playing, will be as full strength as we've been in a long time on defense. You have guys like MJ Stewart who are becoming stars right before our eye, right? Where guys are maybe not stars, but becoming legitimate NFL players. Now you mix back in Newsome, tweeting that he's going to be playing. So, you got the whole cast of characters back.
Mm-hmm.
Back Wilson, everybody's back on defense. So, and they're already playing well with, limited people. I think Sheldon Day has earned himself a rotation spot going in the next year, as well as he's played the last few weeks. So I think that their good defense is going to play really well. And I really do think that if this game means something after Sunday, I think the Browns come out fired up, second lease on life, right? And they blow out the Steelers. That's my prediction.
Right. Well, yeah, and Pittsburgh, they have not been able to score a first half touchdown.
7 games, I believe it is now, right? Or the longest streak of Mike Tomlin's
career. It's something around there. It's like 5, 6, or 7. Yeah, it's something around in between those.
It might be 7 games. Yeah.
So that other, to kind of helps, cushion your thought process there on the Browns getting a big lead in the beginning. So it'll be an interesting week. Like, talk about Groundhog Day with that phrase. That it'll be an interesting week, because this season has been a freaking roller coaster. It has been boring. Something else different every week. And you know what? It made me realize how boring last season was, because everything was going so well, and that's okay. Like, I like boring, and it gives us stuff to talk about, but it's not, at the end of the day, what we want to talk about. We want to talk about them winning. We want to talk about them succeeding. We want to talk about what we're going to be doing for the playoffs to celebrate and change everything around here for the Browns in Cleveland. I mean, it's just for a new era. And I think we've proven ourselves to be contenders and legitimate now in the league. We're being talked about every week on national platforms. And granted, it's not always good. It's usually bad, but we're getting attention, which is more than we could have said the last 2 years. So we're in the right direction.
It is something if you read like on boards, just on comment sections it's always the same thing. Man, that Browns team is so good minus the quarterback. If I had $1 for every time I read that in a comment section with someone not related to the Browns.
People say we'd be 10, 11 win team.
I know him. Their roster's so loaded, when you read it, and they're not wrong. Now the people looking from the peripheral don't understand how much this team's been through with the COVID, with the injuries. There have definitely been, factors that go into that as well. We've had Chubb's been out, Hunt's been out.
But Jeremy, none of this has any other team. Every other team has seen exactly what we've seen.
Oh yeah.
So it's very hard. They have to remember that. Like, Baker's very woe is me. It's like, well, guess what?
Yeah.
Everyone has dealt with that. Every
team in the damn league. But the Bengals, I don't know what happened down there in Cincinnati. They got no major injuries. They haven't had any COVID until Brandon Allen got it yesterday. They've had like no COVID and no injuries all year.
Yeah.
So maybe that's their year.
Weird.
Maybe that's a sign right there that for whatever reason, the Cincinnati Bengals have a force field around their crappy facilities down there. The worst facilities in the history of the NFL.
Well, maybe we'll bring COVID. Maybe we'll bring COVID or vice versa.
Maybe it's creeping south from Cleveland, right?
Yeah.
So it's like so they've been the the one that's gotten lucky this year, but we'll see. We'll see. No doubt it's going to be an interesting Sunday. What do you think the ratings will be in Cleveland for that Bengals Kansas City Chiefs game on Sunday? It'll be off the charts.
Yeah.
It'll be like, what was the game? The 1 year there was the second highest market. Remember, there was a game last year that had implications on Cleveland's playoffs, and it was like a 60 share.
One of the highest ones. This is insane. You're right. Yes, I know.
It was higher than the home market. So that's just how we are.
That's how Cleveland is. We are always highly invested in anyone that will help us win. Just no matter what.
Guess what time it is now, Holly? It's Cavs basketball time.
It's Cavs basketball time.
Hashtag let them know.
Let them know that there's a brand new high top podcast on Press Play.
Did you see?
It ain't us.
Did you see Rizzo, your station there? Oh, and guess what? The Cavs are up 18-4, 4 minutes into the game.
Oh my God.
It's 18-4 Cavs right now. It's crazy. But the number one they put out, and I know from personal experience that I couldn't find one. I tried everywhere to get my son an Evan Mobley jersey, and there isn't one available to buy in a youth size anywhere. And so the Rizzo and those guys, they did a poll, which jersey would be the number one Christmas gift this year. And it was like, Jose Ramirez, Baker Mayfield, Evan Mobley got like 75% of it. So there you go. That's where we're at right now. And we're up 18-4 right now.
Performance talks.
With no Garland. No Darius Garland tonight. No Darius Garland, and we're still up 18-4. It doesn't even make sense.
Oh, we're the Cavs. So sorry, everybody. Thanks for doubting us.
The wine is winier.
The wine is winier. I'm here for that.
There we go.
I'm here for that.
Let's go.
All right, Jeremy. Good stuff. Well, we will be back here next week on the Orange is Oranger Cleveland Browns podcast. So make sure to join us. Find out everything you want about Press Play and all of our awesome podcasts at pressplaypodcast.com. And let's hope for a nice post-New Year win. Right, Jeremy?
Let's go.
Let's go.
Let's
All
do
right.
it. Go
All right, guys. Talk to you next week, and go Browns.
Let's go.